Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tea to the Ankle Thankful, and today we're going to be reading Out in the Cold, Part 2, Lighting the Fire by Espederic. A truly fine day was blessing the land of Equestria. Celestia's sun hung high in the sky, its light gently radiating down on her subjects. The cloud detail had cleared the sky of all but the smallest, puffiest of clouds, ensuring there was no chance of rain to ruin the day. All in all, it was the perfect summer day, ideal for young lovers to spend lazy hours showing each other their affections. It was unfortunate then that the newest couple in Ponyville was having the first disagreement of their burgeoning relationship. "Do you have to tell her?" the blue-pelted pony begged her partner as they lay side by side on the deck that was built in the upper level of Ponyville's library. Her lover, a fellow mare, her body clad in purples, exhaled softly, a quill and parchment hanging in the sky through her magic. This argument had been going on for quite a while and was beginning to wear at her mood. "Of course I have to tell her, Trixie. She's my mentor. She deserves to know about us," she stated with finality. Perhaps even a week ago Trixie would have refused to back down, but things had changed and she had learned something important, to know when to admit defeat. "Alright, Twilight, you win," Unicorn conceded to her opponent, and Twilight smiled gently. She turned her eyes to the parchment hanging in the sky, and the quill began to do its work, following its owner's commands. "Dear Princess Celestia, in the time I have spent here in Ponyville, I have learned a great deal about the nature and magic of friendship. Now, by chance, I have learned an important new lesson, one about feelings beyond friendship, the lesson of love. I have fallen for someone, Princess, and I seek your blessing of our relationship. Her name is Trixie, and she has grown very dear to me. Please, when you are not busy, I would invite you to meet with her. I look forward to your response. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle." It had come as a bit of a shock to Trixie when she learned that the princess was Twilight's teacher, and she was definitely worried about what she was going to think, but it was too late for complaints now. Because with a final flourish, Twilight signed the letter and looked encouragingly at the sulking midnight blue pony beside her. "I'll just take this to Spike, and he can send it to the princess. You'll see, Trixie. It'll be okay." Trixie nodded weakly, and watched as Twilight stood up and trotted into the library proper, leaving her alone. Trixie lay there on the deck, trying to convince herself that everything would be okay. The sun, previously so comfortable to her, seemed to be getting even hotter, beating down on her laid-out form. The bright orb seemed to hang low in the sky, large and red. The small, puffy white clouds had dispersed. "What's taking her so long?" Trixie muttered to herself. Perhaps it was the nerves, but it felt like Twilight had been gone for longer than she should have been. Her brow was starting to dampen with sweat, and she looked up at the sky. The shimmering orb looked even larger than it had a few moments ago. In fact, as Trixie watched, she realized that it was moving right towards her. Trixie let out a squeak of surprise and quickly got to her feet. The sun was getting closer and closer. She started to pant, feeling lightheaded, her eyes wide. The blazing sphere descended close enough that she could almost touch it, and then began to unfold. Trixie, letting out a cry, cowering, she was briefly blinded by the blaze. "So, you are the mare deceiving my student," a booming voice commanded, the voice of a goddess. Trixie forced one of her eyes open to behold a shining cross between a Pegasus and a unicorn, glowing with the brightness of a great and terrible desert sun, the leaves of the tree the library resided in starting to burst into flames. No, it's not like that," Trixie protested, the goddess glared, the fire and light of a star piercing through the quavering unicorn. Trixie started trying any defense, dying in her now parched throat. "Silence!" the goddess of the sun bellowed, causing the wood of the deck to start to splinter and smoulder. "I can see right through you, deceiver, trickster. I know of your crimes." Trixie whimpered, the heat starting to overwhelm her, and she weakly lifted her head, seeing that the goddess was no longer alone. She was accompanied by the twisted parodies of Twilight's friends. They stared down accusingly at Trixie, the angelic servants of a wrathful goddess. "She humiliated us," they cried as one, again and again, calling out Trixie's crimes and mistakes, exposing them out to dry and burn in the sun. "I'm sorry," Trixie begged, prostrating herself before them, begging for mercy. "Please, I know I made mistakes, but I want to make up for it. Please! The goddess had appeared before Trixie looked scornfully down at her. For your crimes, for your deceit of my student, I condemn you, the deity commanded, and began to blaze even brighter than before. So bright that Trixie couldn't see anything but light, and she let out a scream as her very being was overwhelmed and seared away. Trixie let out a soft groan as she opened her eyes. It was early in the morning, the sun shining through the window, accusingly washing over the half-awake mare. She let out a quiet moan and forced herself up, careful not to disturb the two other occupants of the room. Spike, the baby dragon, was curled up in his basket, and Twilight was still asleep in the bed opposite to Trixie's. The unicorn felt her cheeks flush slightly as she watched Twilight sleep, her body rhythmically moving up and down in time with her breathing. She felt grateful she hadn't woken them up as well. Trixie lay back, chiding herself for her overactive imagination. She had been sleeping so well over the past week, unlike the dreams that had been plaguing her before the fateful night. However, Trixie knew exactly the source and reason for this nightmare. That day was the day that Twilight was going to introduce Trixie to her friends. Trixie flicked her horn. One of her mother's books floated off the bed to stand next to her. Opening up the page that she had marked, she could only hope that reading would ease her worry about what was going to happen this day. It wasn't like it was a true introduction to any of them. Throughout the week, Twilight's friends had been popping in and out of the library to check on her as she helped Trixie convalesce. Each time they visited, however, Trixie tried to make herself as small as possible, barely responding to questions and never making eye contact. Despite Twilight's reassurances, Trixie was still worried, and she still felt guilty about how she had treated every pony in Ponyville the last time she was there. Twilight had used the excuse that she was still feeling physically unwell, which was the truth, admittedly, to excuse her lack of sociability. They hadn't even come close to telling them about their relationship yet. Trixie realized that she had read the same line in a particularly challenging invisibility spell about 7 times now, and gave up. She quietly slipped out of bed and headed for the mirror. Trixie really was worried about how Twilight's friends would react to her, but it couldn't be delayed any longer. Twilight had insisted that the best thing for her now was to start moving and to stop hiding in the library. Trixie herself had to admit that she was really feeling better, as the pony peered back in the mirror proved. Her pelt had regained its sheen, and her hair, while still quite long, was back in order. The cuts and nicks on her legs had mostly healed, and while she was gaining weight again, her ribs disappearing back into her body, it was really amazing how much of a difference that bed rest, comfort, and an attentive partner had made to her. Trixie allowed herself a small blush, looking at the bed, her cheeks, and beyond that, the slumbering pony that was the cause of it. The best part of the last few days had really been Twilight. Their relationship at this point was less grand and romantic, and more comfortable and kind. It was tender kisses and soft caresses that made the recovering Trixie's body tinkle with delight. There would be plenty of time for grand romantic gestures once Trixie was less Twilight's patient and more her partner. But for now, she was content to spend the evenings laying against that lovely mare, as they both read through Midnight's books, the heritage that Trixie had been gifted. She only wished that she could figure out why Twilight had kissed her in the first place. Oh, she knew quite well why Trixie herself had reciprocated that kiss, having accepted the emotion that she'd been denying ever since that night with Ursa Minor. But Twilight's reasons were still a mystery to her. She wanted to know, but she was terrified to ask, as if the act of doing so would break the spell that had woven around them. Twilight let out a soft groan, dispelling the self-examination that Trixie had been giving herself. She inhaled softly and put on a brave smile, turning away from the mirror and moving over to Twilight's bed, bending down and giving her a soft, loving nuzzle. "Good morning, Twilight," she whispered into her ear, pressing fondly against her. "Today's the day, isn't it?" "Trixie?" Purple Unicorn blinked wearily, trying to clear the morning fuzz from her brain. "You don't normally wake up earlier than me." She slowly sat up, returning the gentle nuzzles Trixie was giving her, before looking at her with sudden concern. "Did you sleep all right? You didn't have another bad dream, did you?" "No. Oh, no. Nothing of the sort." Trixie didn't see the need to concern Twilight with that silly dream. "I just woke up early because I'm excited, Zil. Big day. Go and meet your friends. All that happy and nothing bad ever happening, right?" She was probably laying her on a bit thick, and it was clear from the expression on Twilight's face that she wasn't about to buy it for a